Hope you're all doing good. So this talk is going to be slightly technical. We will see a couple of results in symplectic geometry, and then a little bit of topology, and you know like explore a few properties, and then probably shift to um, um, and then we will shift to looking at what differential equations and what operators actually do look like, and how they can how to analyze them, and like the final point where I will just leave you at is the index, the concept of an index, which is probably won't be covered in this particular video. Uh, However, like I will try to provide that link or the bridge between topology and differential solving differential equation, and how it all works out, right? Like what are the tools that we can take from topology into purely analytical differential equation, right? So this is something that you know you will probably will get a little intuition about at the end of this video. So let's start off. Yeah, so first I will be talking about simplexes and simplicial complexes. Then I will be talking about groups, the group under these simplexes, and then I will be talking about chain complexes. Like it'll be a very short topic, and then I will provide some sort of bridging, and then we will move on to differential geometry or differential equation. Right? We will try to see how both are linked, and we will like end up with the index, what an index means, right? Okay, fine. Starting off, simplexes and symplectic complexes. An R simplex is a collection of R independent points in RR, which is the R dimensional real space. And then yeah, so you have a zero simplex, which is given by a point, and a one simplex, which is given by a line segment joining the 2 points, and then two simplex given by the triangle, and so on, right? So yeah, now what does an oriented simplex mean? So essentially, the simplex is nothing but a collection of points. It is a set, and yeah, it can be represented as elements of a set, something that looks like this, right? P0, P1, P2 looks something like this. So essentially, if it is oriented, then if you interchange two um, elements of the set, then it changes the sign. So, for example, you have pi and pj here, which are interchanged, right? Pi and pj is equal to negative pj pi, right? So this is oriented. So in case the sign doesn't change, then it is non-oriented, right? So if yeah, so in case of some independent points, so here all these points are independent of each other. That is, no 3 points are on the same line, and no 2 point and no 4 points are on the same plane, right? So essentially, an independent point is uh, like is called as a simplex. But what if there are some non-independent points, right? So, for example, what if there are 3 points along the same line, as we will see here, right? There are 3 points along the same line, and this kind of structure gives you a collection or of simplexes, right? So there are yeah, so there are like three triangles here, and these are the two simplexes, and there are several one simplexes, and several points, 6 points here. So essentially they give you some sort of idea of what like a complex look like, right? It is like when you bring in various simplexes together and when you have relations between certain simplexes. So for example, these two share a boundary. So yeah, properties like this will give you certain structures to the simplicial complex, right? And we can use certain theorems and certain axioms to kind of resolve the structure and find out more properties about the complex, right? Okay, so about groups, there are three basic groups that we are interested in. One is the chain group, the second is the cycle group, and a third one is the boundary group, right? So now we will just take a quick detour. Um, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So we will take a quick detour and essentially we will look at the differential operator. This is not the boundary operator, sorry. This is the differential operator TOR, which is basically takes you from simplicial complex to of r dimensions to a complex of r minus 1 dimension. So the differential basically drops your yeah the differential basically drops your uh, dimensionality by one, and so essentially like the zeroth differential of a point is zero. The first differential or dou one p naught p1, which is line segment, is p naught minus p1, which is this line segment, and then dou two uh, is p naught p1 minus p1 p2 plus p2 p naught, right? Why is this minus sign here is something that is of uh, a significant interest to us, right? So it happens. So essentially, it is. So it happens to be that so if we take the differential to mean p1 plus p2, then it means logically every one simplex that includes p1 and p2, right? That means a straight line, and then you don't have any sort of structural meaning to p1 plus p2, right? But however, when you take the difference between the two, what happens is there are two things that happen. One, it gets cut off to P1 and P2 strictly. Secondly, it also gives you the negative sign which also helps with the orientability or the orientation, right? So, if for example, this if P naught minus P1 is an arrow from P naught to P1, then P1 minus P naught will be the reverse arrow. So in the sense, the direction will change, right? So overall, like if you want a deeper geometric meaning, it somewhat means like somewhat means that the simplexes are closed. In the sense, there is always a negative sign for greater than uh, certain dimension. So in the sense, it has a it has a strict constraint or a strict boundary between all the uh, points, right? So in this sense, yeah, so because of this particular property, okay, so when you apply the differential to consecutively twice, that is if you apply the differential here, right? So dou r, so for example, let's take this as 2, right? Dou r, and then if you apply dou r, so essentially if you apply dou r plus 1, that is if you like take the differential of the um, uh, simplex, then you get a line, right? You get a line segment. You get one of these three line segments, and then when you take a differential of this reduces to zero because this has no, the boundary of the boundary vanishes, right? So in the sense, this interesting result is a consequence of this negative sign here. We won't go into the proof here, but essentially, when you can probably do it on your own, right? So if you expand this, so yeah, this is the expansion of Dua. So dou r of sigma r. Sigma r is the complex. Sigma r is used to, sigma r is used to define a simplex. So if you take the expansion of dou r sigma r, then you have summation from I to r, from 0 to r. That is the simplexes, all the simplexes. Each take a negative, so you have an alternative sum here, and then so essentially because it reduces by one dimension, you go from these points, so r, so the sum is because you go from each point, and every time you skip a step, you, like every next step, you omit the next element. So for example, pi is omitted here, and then if it is the iteration that you're running, right? So essentially, when you do this and apply this twice, so dou r plus 1 of sigma r plus 1, and then you have a dou r here, out here, so essentially this form, then you will actually easily be able to prove that this whole thing, this whole thing equates 0, right? So yeah, so this is one interesting consequence, which essentially means the boundary of a boundary vanishes. Just keep this in the back of your mind, and we will, probably approach it a little later, right? Um, so, essentially, coming back now, groups. There are three sorts of groups: chain, cycle, boundary. Chain group is nothing but a collection of all the simplexes, R simplexes. So if there are, IR are simplexes, then there are IR, like the all the simplexes form a chain. So for example here, so if you have an R chain, what does an R chain mean? Right? An R chain means a collection of all these. So if you have R to be defined as two, right? If you want two chains from this particular complex, right? Then it is a collection of all these triangles that we form here. If you want one simplexes, then it is a collection of all the line segments, basically, right? So you have an R chain, it is a collection of simplexes in R simplexes, essentially, and each simplex is given a certain coefficient to kind of differentiate them from one another. Then you have R cycles, which is essentially when you have the boundary of element or a simplex to be 0. Okay, so in the sense that if you have points here, so if you have this line segment here, the boundary of this line segment is 0. So in the sense that it can't contain, it has particular specific properties, such in terms of dimensionality. So for example, if it is an R simplex, so an R chain can exist, but an uh, R cycle, like, yeah, so an R cycle cannot exist, right? So there are particular, you lower the dimensions and you have particular properties and things like that, right? So essentially the boundary of R, the differential of R, this thing is 0. So all the points, for example, are cycles, right? Then you have R boundaries, which is nothing but if C is the differential of another simplex or a complex, then C is an R boundary or a boundary group, and the collection of C forms a boundary group, right? So in the sense, Yeah. So you have the exterior edges which give you the boundary group of C. Right. So now the result is so one thing to note here is the boundary is a subset of the cycle and the cycles are a subset of the chain group, right? So with all this said, one thing, okay, so with all this said, one thing that you need to keep in mind now is uh, what does this mean, right? So you have a geometric structures, you have structures a shape, and you essentially boil this shape down into very simple components, and then each component follows some is the part of some group, right? And then you analyze the group algebra, the way the components are connected to each other, and the way, like for example, I told you this, I just told you, like two in that triangle you had two two simplexes sharing a border, right? Sharing a boundary. So in the sense, like using these kind of like tools, these subtle differences, or these subtle results give you some sort of simplifications or some sort of group algebras, and these group algebras lead to better understanding or better formulation of these simplexes. So basically you're just trying to if you want to look at something in different ways. So for example, if you're trying to solve a particular equation in one method, and you just need something different, you just need to attack it from a different angle to make it simpler, then you just use these groups and uh, group properties to look at which angle will be the easiest to attack the problem from, and so on, right? So it is essentially you have a very intricate structure that gives you when you try to break down uh, geometric shape. So with that said, um, let's talk about chain complexes. Chain complexes are nothing but from zero, which is from nothing, you include a chain complex, an n dimensional or an n complex, right? So once you include an n complex, then you apply the differential to this Cn, then you get an n minus one dimensional complex. So in the sense, every time you apply a differential, you get one dimension lesser. So for example, you apply the differential here to the simplex, this triangle, then you get an edge, right? You get this collection of edges, and then you apply the differential here, you get a collection of points. When you apply the differential to the point, then you get zero, and you reach the end, right? So if you have n dimensions, you have n complexes. So this is called as a complex chain. Now it happens that you have a dual space of this chain complex, which is called as a co-chain complex, right? So in the sense that whenever you take a dimension, so essentially it is reversed, and it is represented by these elements are represented by C stars. Okay, so when you reverse this, then every time you apply the differential in the cochain space, then you have a higher dimension. So for example, if it is n2, n minus 2 complex, or n minus 2 cochain, then you apply the differential and you get n minus 1 cochain. So in the sense, it is some sort of like you go up in the order, right? So it's something like so for example, you have a point, and then you go up to a line segment, and then from a line segment you go up to a triangle, something like that, right? So but it is a little bit tricky, and we won't exactly be looking into cochain here. Uh, but just keep this in mind. So cochains are nothing but a dual phase or a dual some sort of a reversal of the chain complex, right? So now going into some sort of outside, okay. Um, yeah, so if you take simple, so this will probably give you some sort of intuition on why or how differential equations are linked to a geometric shape. So in the sense, um, uh, so if you look at simple harmonic oscillators, they have solutions, right? They have sine waves and cosine waves, right? Notice that this is of one mode and this is of two modes, right? So in the sense that you have uh, a similar structure. So you have, for example, if you take sine and cosine wave, so you have one sort of wave coming here, and then you increment the theta, and you get from 1 to 3, right? So in the sun, you have a correlation is you have a one simplex. I mean, you have a two simplex, and when you break down the two simplex, or for example, if you can modify it in such a way that you have all equilateral triangles, then you get four equilateral triangles. But when you take the boundaries, you actually end up getting three equilateral triangles, and the center one is repeated and ignored, right? So in the sense, something like this, right? So this correlation between the roughs and rough gives you some sort of uh, idea on how both are related, right? This is, of course, very rudimentary, and I might be totally wrong with it, but like essentially, just look at this, right? So, for example, shapes, shapes have a direct linkage to solutions of differential equations, and by analyzing shape, we can analyze solutions of differential equations. Okay, so secondly, somewhat more formal relation is if f is not a function of x, but it is a function, then df by dx is zero. The derivative of x with respect to f is zero. In the sense, um, f here becomes a constant, right? So the same thing, right? So a boundary of a boundary vanishes. So when you talk about a boundary, you fix it. You somewhat make it a constant, right? You make the boundary. You fix the boundary. You have one exact idea of what a boundary looks like, and when you take the differential of that, then it reduces to zero, right? So, I mean, in the sense, boundary of a boundary vanishes. So, if you look at these two relations, so somehow constants in calculus are related to the second differential or the boundaries in, uh, uh, you know, uh, topology or simplex geometry. So now we chart course for index theorem. Okay, so this will be the final bit. So if we define an operator D such that it takes over from a manifold M and its uh, vector bundle E, and it transforms the vector bundle E in such a way that it becomes gamma M comma F, right? So this vector bundle E changes to F here. So what does this mean, right? So essentially, what does vector bundle mean? So for example, if you have a particular shape, say a potato, and your vector boundaries is now defined to be the normal space of the potato. That means you have a normal at each and every point, which gives you some sort of like a potato with hair, right? So now when you have potato with hair, um, you change it. So for example, you comb it, or you just say that every vector changes by a particular angle, and the angle is probably a function of the position of the vector on the potato, right? So now that change, right? So this change is called as an operator, right? This change is called as an operator, and in the end, you get up a new potato with a new, different hairstyle, essentially. So it is basically changing the hairstyle of shape is called is what a differential is what an operator does, right? So differential geometry is actually all about studying different shapes and how changing the shapes follow certain rules. So for example, um, yeah, so if you have a sphere and you comb the hair on the sphere in such a way, uh, you always have you always have singularities and number of singularities and a number of poles, and like basically your scarf, right? No matter how you comb your hair, you have a scarf and you have a kernel at the back, right? You have that thing, that's that spiral thing, right? Okay? So essentially that is the key idea of differential geometry. So to tell you or to kind of help you understand how different hairstyles are related to each other, and how like one hairstyle can change to another, and what exactly you need to do in order to change from one to another, right? So the yeah, again, the hair is nothing but your vector bundle that you define on your head, right? The potato, right? I'm not the potato, but yeah. So anyway, so if you define this operator D as changing from gamma ME to gamma MF, so then the kernel of D becomes such that S belongs to gamma ME, where ds is 0. So if you apply, so S is an element, so a point on the manifold here, and if S if the operator is applied to S, then you get a null space, right? I mean, you get null, right? So in the sense, yeah. So this is how the kernel is defined. Then the co-kernel is defined in such a way that T conjugate is if S belongs to T conjugate, so that is S belongs to not this particular space, the starting point, but S belongs to the end point, and then you have a mapping, right? So in the sense d star of S is 0, right? So in sense there is some sort of inversion or a reversion. So these kind of reversals and inversions are called duals in mathematics. It's pretty tricky to define what a dual is exactly, because different objects and different properties have different duals. But it's essentially it is some sort of like opposite. So the kernel of the and the co-kernel are some sort of like opposites of the same operation. Um then you have this definition, right? So essentially here kernel of D is given by gamma me modular image of D. Image of D is like essentially if you have a space A or X, so then you like map all the elements on X to another space B or Y. So then like all the elements here in Y modulo the zero element, it gives you the image of D, right? So the kernel of this diagram is obviously pretty intuitive. So yeah, it gives you, sorry, this is M of F and not E. I mean M comma F. This is not E. Please ignore this E here. It is F, right? So essentially, this kernel has this particular definition. So in the sense that the kernel is a collection of all the points that map down to a zero, right? In the sense wherever you're probably uh, something like um, wherever you're creating a partition in your hair, and then you have a scar, you have a have this graph directly, right? So those are the kind of points where your vectors are 0, and then you have some sort of um, uh, 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 identities, or you have some sort of like relation with that, right? So essentially the kernel is used to identify these particular unique relations or unique properties of these points. So in the sense, yeah, okay. So now once you know what a kernel and a co-kernel are and how they are exactly defined, then the index of D is nothing but the dimension of the kernel of D. So in the sense, understand these are these are not like simple one-dimensional or two-dimensional sets. These are like n-dimensional spaces with n properties and so on, right? So in the sense, when you want to solve differential equations for a large number of variables and a large number of constraints, you essentially need to narrow it down in such a way, like in, for example, linear algebra, so you have uh, you can analyze the kind of structures or the solutions you get by just taking the determinant of the matrix or taking the count of the elements or the dimensions of the matrix, right? So in the same way, where whenever you have, so for example, if you have a zero row or a zero column, then you have certain uh, uh, null spaces. You have some sort of flattening, or you have some sort of right unique solutions at that particular. I mean, you have you have a solution space, right? Instead of unique solutions, you have a solution space, and you know where exactly the solution spaces are located, something like that. So essentially, when you want to understand exactly where your solution space is located and stuff like that, right? So you use indexes, which gives you some sort of relation. So it gives you the dimension of kernel D is defined as the dimension of kernel D minus the dimension of the co-kernel D, right? So in the sense, you have some sort of kernel uh, uh, here, and then you have the same kernel in the core space, that is the dual space. So you have x and y interchanged, and then you have some sort of kernel here that maps onto 0 in x, and then basically the change or the change of the dimensionality gives you the index d. So what is the index d right now? Index d gives you some sort of like how many degree idea as to how many degrees of freedom particular system of differential equations have. Now, how is this related, right? So if you see, solutions of differential equations are a set of functions, which means that take on many values, that they take on a whole lot of values, that they take on, like, they define spaces, they define manifolds, they define spaces. So now when you have spaces, and when you need to go about with a quicker way to analyze these spaces, you need particular like constants, or you need particular things that are fixed irrespective of how your shape is changing. Like for example, your vector bundle may change however it wants, right? But even if it change, um, right, even if it changes to from E to F, then there is one particular you know um, unique property or an invariant that is unique to this particular change, right? So in the sense, when you look for invariants, you can find out that differential equations or a set of a differential system has, or an operator, to be more specific, an operator will have a particular index. So now, how do we measure that index? Like you, this obviously this looks like an easy enough formula, but unfortunately, finding out the kernel of D and finding out the kernel of D star is nothing but solving the equation. For example, so you have a differential equation here, right? So ds, where d is your differential, d is your operator, which might be a large set of like orders or different orders derivatives with respect to different variables. So you have a huge operator, and then you have one element in your whatever space, right? So you have an operator, and you're acting on this element, and then it has to be zero. So essentially, you're solving for that system, right? Unfortunately, finding out kernels is not that easy, and finding out the dimensionality is also pretty complicated. So you need certain tools and certain help to actually try to understand how to solve these differential equations much faster, right? So and solve them in the first place, right? So essentially, now because of that, right, what you look for is you look for a topological invariant. So you look for an invariant, and then you map that to topological invariance, right? So how is this related? Is so for example, if it turns out that for a DRAM complex, which is a complex chain that is defined like whatever we spoke about here, chain complex. So uh, for a DRAM complex, okay, which is given by this particular thing, right? So yeah, omega 0, then you apply the differential rating, it becomes omega 1. So in the sense, there is a dual space here. So this is the dual space that I was talking about. So in the sense, you have higher, you go up and you increase your dimensionality by applying the differential here, right? In the sense now, your index of omega star, which is the quotient complex, is governed by the alternating summation of the dimension of HR, right? So we will go on. So HR is a particular is an interesting um, quantity, right? So we will it is called as a homology group. So HR gives you a particular cohomology group, and then it is the alternating sum of the cohomology groups of that particular uh, R, right? That particular dimension, right? So in the sense now, um, this is eerily similar to the Euler characteristic, which is given by the alternating sum of Hi, right? So Hi is just another topological invariant, and yeah, so so now you see, right? So differential equations are mapped onto topological invariants, and then you have some sort of like you have a purely analytical quantity here, right? This whole thing is purely analytic geometry in the sense it is only talking about differential equation numbers and functions and things like that, right? Whereas geometry is only topology and simplexes, all that I was talking about is only talking about shape and properties of shape, right? So essentially, there is a certain bridge in the index theorem between shape and a function, and that is the left hand side here so index here. The left hand side here is the purely analytical quantity, but the right hand side here is the purely topological quantity. Okay, so this relation correlation is what is of particular interest in the form of index theorem and so on, and you have better ideas on how to solve a differential equation, and basically that's essentially it, right? So yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah. So then this the talk is done. So what probably what did we talk about, right? So we talked about simplexes. We tried to analyze a few properties of simplexes. We looked at the groups of simplexes and then symplectic groups, and then we talked about the boundary of the differential and the uh, boundaries, the boundary of the boundary vanishes, and then we talked about how um, yeah, we talked about how cochains and chains look like. I mean, okay. So we talked about how cochains and chains look like, and then we moved on to talking about differential equations and how index theorems help you give solutions to differential equations by kind of analyzing the zeros and the mappings and giving you particular properties and combining various tools from every field of mathematics. You have this relation that binds two polar fields, which is A, the purely topological uh, um, geometry, and then you have differential equations, differential geometry, and all that, and then you have them both combined to give you some sort of unique property, right? So, like, yeah, so essentially it is a new field in mathematics which uh, probably will give a lot more than what we have. So it is like uh, it is a field of research and analysis, and perhaps it will unlock some key clues of nature and how this directly ties up to physics is essentially you need to solve differential equations in different ways, and if you can't solve them, you at least need to know the properties of the differential equation, and like index theorems give you certain links to these properties so we can understand them better, we can visualize everything better first of all. So yeah, and, that's it for today. Thank you all.